Everyone thinks gold sits at the top of the food chain. Kings wore it. Empires hoarded it. Wars were fought over it. Gold feels eternal, untouchable, unquestionable. But there is another metal, one most people have never seen, never held, and never even heard of, that once sold for more than 10 times the price of gold. Not because it's flashy. Not because it's rare jewelry. And not because investors love it. It's expensive for a reason most people never consider. And once you understand it, you'll realize this metal quietly controls the air you breathe, the cars you drive, and even the shine on luxury watches. This metal is rhodium, and its price has almost nothing to do with beauty or hype. The story begins in the early 1800s, not in a gold mine, but in a laboratory. A chemist was obsessed with platinum, the heavy gray metal that refused to dissolve like others. While studying raw platinum ore, something strange kept appearing in the leftovers. After dissolving the ore in a dangerous acid mixture strong enough to eat through metal, a faint pink residue remained. It didn't behave like anything known at the time. From that rose-colored sediment, a new element was isolated. It was named rhodium, after the Greek word for rose. At the time, it was nothing more than a chemical curiosity. Beautiful, yes, but useless. Too rare to mint. Too hard to shape. Too stubborn to cooperate. For over a century, rhodium sat in obscurity, quietly ignored by the world. That long period of irrelevance is the first clue to why rhodium is so misunderstood today. If something is truly valuable, people assume it must have always been desired. Gold, silver, diamonds, they all have ancient stories tied to power and status. Rhodium has no such mythology. It didn't decorate crowns or fill vaults. It waited. And when its moment finally arrived, it arrived not in palaces, but under your car. The modern internal combustion engine produces power, but it also produces poison. Invisible gases that, if released directly into the air, would choke cities. Carbon monoxide suffocates. Nitrogen oxides create smog and acid rain. Unburned hydrocarbons damage lungs and ecosystems. Early cars simply dumped these gases into the atmosphere. Cities paid the price. The solution came in the form of the catalytic converter, a small metal chamber tucked into the exhaust system, doing work so critical most people never think about it. Inside that chamber is where rhodium becomes priceless. It performs a job that no other metal can do as effectively. When nitrogen oxides hit a rhodium-coated surface, the metal forces a reaction that tears those molecules apart, breaking them down into harmless nitrogen and oxygen. This isn't filtration. It's chemistry at the atomic level. Rhodium doesn't get used up. It doesn't burn away. It just sits there, facilitating reactions millions of times per second. Without it, modern emission standards would be nearly impossible to meet. This is where the price story truly begins. As governments around the world tightened air quality laws, cars didn't just need engines. They needed cleaner exhaust. And cleaner exhaust meant more rhodium. When major economies introduced stricter standards, demand didn't grow gradually. It spiked violently. Suddenly, a metal nobody talked about became mission-critical to the global transportation system. At this point, most people assume the obvious solution is mining more. That logic works for gold. Prices rise, miners dig deeper. But rhodium doesn't play by those rules. There are no rhodium mines. None. Zero. Rhodium cannot be mined on purpose. It exists only as a trace contaminant inside platinum and nickel ores, often measured in parts per million. To obtain a single ounce, tons of rock must be processed, refined, and chemically separated. Even then, yields are tiny and unpredictable. This creates a brutal economic trap. Rhodium supply is locked to platinum mining. If demand for rhodium doubles, supply cannot follow unless platinum production also increases. And platinum demand doesn't move the same way. Even if rhodium prices skyrocket, miners can't just pivot. The metal is chained to another industry's economics. This is what economists call inelastic supply, and it's the core reason rhodium prices behave like a wild animal instead of a stable commodity. The numbers are staggering. Each year, the world produces thousands of tons of gold. Rhodium production barely reaches a few dozen tons. Imagine the entire annual supply fitting into a small truck. Now imagine that supply being absolutely essential to every new car sold in major markets. Add one more complication. Most of that supply comes from one region of the world. A single geographic bottleneck. When mining disruptions hit, the effect is immediate. Labor strikes, power shortages, political instability, or global shutdowns don't just slow rhodium production. They strangle it. At the same time, emissions laws don't pause. Automakers still need converters. Demand remains locked in place while supply vanishes. Prices don't rise smoothly. They explode. That's exactly what happened when global disruptions collided with new emission standards. Rhodium didn't just appreciate. It went parabolic. Prices jumped from hundreds of dollars an ounce to tens of thousands. At its peak, rhodium was more expensive than gold, platinum, and palladium combined. Investors didn't cause this spike. Industry did. Speculators simply piled on afterward, amplifying the chaos. This extreme value created an unintended side effect. A shadow market. If rhodium is too rare to mine efficiently, the next best source is already processed metal. Old cars. Inside every catalytic converter is a small coating of precious metals. When prices were low, these converters were scrap. When prices surged, they became targets. A thief doesn't see a car. They see chemistry. With basic tools, a catalytic converter can be removed in seconds. That small metal box can contain hundreds of dollars worth of rhodium. Multiply that by thousands of cars, and suddenly a global crime wave makes sense. Recycling became more profitable than mining. Urban parking lots became accidental vaults. The metal's invisibility made it even more dangerous. Nobody guards what they don't realize is valuable. Beyond pollution control, rhodium has another life most people never notice. Luxury. If you've admired the bright, icy shine of white gold jewelry, you weren't actually looking at gold. White gold by itself is dull and grayish. To achieve that mirror-like finish, it's coated with a microscopic layer of rhodium. This layer doesn't tarnish. It doesn't corrode. It reflects light better than any other precious metal. It's the difference between ordinary and flawless. High-end watchmakers use rhodium for the same reason. It resists scratches. It survives decades of exposure without losing its luster. It doesn't oxidize. It doesn't fade. When luxury brands want permanence, rhodium becomes the silent protector. You never see it advertised. You just see the result. This is the final twist in the story. Rhodium isn't expensive because it's rare alone. Plenty of things are rare and worthless. It's expensive because it sits at the intersection of chemistry, regulation, and necessity. Society didn't desire it for beauty. Society was forced to rely on it to function. Clean air isn't optional. Emissions laws aren't suggestions. And no alternative material has matched rhodium's performance at scale. That makes rhodium different from gold in a fundamental way. Gold is desired. Rhodium is required. Its value doesn't come from belief. It comes from obligation. Every tightening regulation, every new engine standard, every urban air quality target reinforces its importance. And because its supply cannot respond quickly, every disruption sends shockwaves through the market. Rhodium is not flashy. It doesn't sit in display cases. It doesn't symbolize power. It hides in exhaust systems and microscopic coatings, quietly doing work that keeps modern life breathable. Its price tells a story not of greed, but of dependence. A metal we ignored for 100 years became indispensable overnight. And once the world depends on something that rare, the cost stops being about money and starts being about survival. That's why rhodium really costs more. Not because people want it, but because we can't function without it.